Alright guys, so just before we get started, I'm just going to show you how to put the files in the correct places to make things a little bit easier. So you'll get the course, it might look a little bit like this, it might be named a little bit different by the time you have it, but you'll have the course here, extract it to wherever you need to extract it. Obviously I've already done that, so I don't need to. For me, I've put it into my project files, many project files here. And then it will be, for me it's in PML, wherever you've put it, and then find the course. So what you can do is you can just drag this onto your side here, or you can drag this one if you want to, the original thing here. But if you click in, this one will be fine because you will have the course samples here. And this is the most important thing that you need. There's also the, let's just make this a little bit bigger. There's also all the templates here, so you can cut to some of the stages if you want to skip ahead or anything like that. There's also the bounce of the finished product, and there's also the MIDI there if you're getting a little bit stuck with the MIDI. So yeah, that's all that you need to know there. So then when you come into Ableton, you can just click on this course folder, and then when we need the samples, you can just pull them from here basically. And if you need to look at any of the project steps, you can just click into them and you can drag them into the project. All right, let's get started. Alrighty guys, so what we're going to do first before we start implementing ideas and putting the track together, we are going to set up the return channels. So we have some things to send sounds to later on. So we're going to use 4 return channels, and the way I'm bringing these up here at the bottom is I'm pressing Control Alt and T, or Command Alt and T, and so we want 4, and we're going to do them so we're going to have a small reverb, a medium, a big, and then a pedal or overdrive. So for the small one, we have it set up here. It's this empty holes. It's already been set up, so you don't need to do any changes on it. And then we're going to go to the B, which is the sparse hole. And then the last one will be the endless Arctic. Yeah. And then we're going to put on here some return overdrive, which is this here. Also going to put an EQ before this. So this is going to be, it's a pedal, so it just adds distortion, but you don't generally want too much of this low end in there. So we're just going to filter that. We also can filter some of the reverbs as well. Let's put another EQ on these. We can just filter like this. It's good to try to tidy your reverb so you're not getting lots of low end and lots of highs. It's going to help with like mud in the mix. So yeah, something like this. We can actually just copy this over. There we go. Okay, cool. So now we are set up with the return channels and we can get going with building the track. All right, so let's start building the track. We will put the kick in first. It's a good place to start. Go to the course folder and you can just type kick. This one here. Quite boomy, this kick has quite a bit of sub to it, so we're going to be cleaning it up before we use it. So first let's cut it here, because you see how the sample starts a little bit late, so we want it to start like pretty much dead on. Give it a little bit of a run up, and then we put it onto one shot, and we want to fade it, so it'll play the single one shot here. We're not using ADSR settings to determine the length of the sound. And then we want to shorten it quite a bit, so you go to like around where this 100 is. We'll put a line through it, and we take off snap so it doesn't snap to a grid, and then we're going to fade it quite a lot to around 70. Fade this up a little bit as well. Okay, so now we need to dip it down by 1 semitone. This is going to put it into F. I already know that because I've heard the kick. But we want it to be in F because the track's going to be in the scale of F minor. So it's good to tune your kick. The next thing you need to do is we're going to use this filter here because it's got a little bit of a drive on it. So we can add a bit of drive, about 4 dB, something like that. And the filter, you can bring it down a bit as well, so it's going to get rid of a bit of the high end in the kick. That is about it. That's all you need to do on the kick there, but we're going to put some EQ. With the EQ, we want to boost in the frequency that's prominent, so the F. So let's have a look here. So you bring this up, and then if you hold down, you press this headphone thing, it's going to make it so you can listen to the frequency that you're focusing on. So I want to focus on this area here. I'm just going to try and make this sharper like that. Oh, we should probably have some MIDI so we can actually hear it. So with samples, when you're using samples in this sampler or simpler, then you need to play the sample on C3. That will be the default of where the sample is like tuned to. If you go up or down, it will detune it accordingly. So I'll just set the grid so it's on these quarter notes, and then we want to just put in a kick here. The velocity, we'll set it to 80. Yeah, it's already at 80. That's all good. And then we can just, while they're all highlighted as they are, you can press Control L. No, it didn't work. Control A and then Control L. There we go. So yeah, if you want to highlight everything, just press Control A if you're on Windows, or Command A, and then Command L or Control L to loop the section. So now we have a kick. The reason we're starting here is because this is where the drop starts on the track. So it's just going to be easier for us in the arrangement rather than doing it here and then moving it later. We'll just start it here, and then this part here is going to be all the intro and things like that. So we're basically building the drop right now. One thing I'll say as well is to start your track, you don't always have to start with a kick. This isn't what everyone does. I wouldn't say that it's like something that's mandatory. A lot of people start with like melodies and things like that, putting ideas together, and then they start doing the drums, but it's completely up to you. In this case, we're going to start with a kick and then work in some of the drums and then go into it. But I don't want you guys to think that there's a certain order that you have to do your creation. You can do it in any way that you like. So yeah, we have a little bit of a boost here, not this much, maybe about 2 dB. And if we have a look, so if I hold this down, you have to hold it down and then play. You can see that it's really focusing on a certain area that we want it to boost. So we want it boost on the F, which is just about here. We're also going to do a bit of a dip in this boomy area around 100 Hertz. Quite a bit of a dip, but make it sure that it's narrow so it doesn't affect too much of the rest of the sound. Go to around here. Yeah, this frequency here, we can dip that by quite a bit, maybe like 4 dB, something like that. Make it a little bit wider. And then the next thing we want to do is to dip a little bit around 1K, maybe a little bit after. It's just the kind of click of the kick. So go and move this along. Around here, we dip, make it a little bit less narrow. So this kind of frequency there, just dip it a little bit, and then we can just fill to the end as well. We don't need this bit here. So we're really tidying the kick up, getting what we want out of it essentially. All right, cool. So now we have a nice clean kick. The next two things that we're going to add aren't going to be used so much now. It's what we're going to use later to make the kick click. But we don't actually need that until we're later on into the project. But we'll put on 2 auto filters. So just duplicate this. And in between that, we're going to put an echo. So just type echo. Okay, so on the echo, we're going to set it up now. But like I said, we're not going to use it. So for this, we want move this left side into quarter notes. I've unlinked it here so they don't move together, as you see. We're going to leave everything else here for now. Take down the dry wet. Make sure that you do that. The reverb, we're going to bring it up a little bit. And we're going to add a bit of decay. What this is going to do, I can show you what it sounds like actually. So if I just play the kick. And we actually want to filter this a bit as well. Let's do this. So we just want the kind of top end. That's going to be a bit of an effect that we're going to do later on. Cool. So we have this, and then we need a limiter. This limiter is going to set the volume of the kick essentially. Okay, so you want it to be at 6 dB of a boost and no ceiling. Ooh. So just put that to 0. You can leave everything else as it is. And then the final volume that we're going to do on the kick is going to be at -6. And there we go. That is our kick. So we are going to be mixing as we go along. So all the elements, we're going to try to get them to sound pretty much exactly how we want them to sound before we're moving on, and that will save us a lot of time later on to do when we do like the mix down. This is something that I do a lot of the time when I'm making a track. I try to make sure that everything's sounding as good as possible before I move on. Obviously, you do need to do a mix where you're listening to everything together and seeing how they're sounding, but it's good to try to get things sounding as good and as clean as possible before you move on. So yeah, that's our kick. Let's move on to the next element. All right, so the next part is going to be adding a claps or a few claps. We're going to be using some loops for this as they are taken directly from the track. So we'll take this first one. We need to have an audio channel. So just to set that up, I just press Control and T. And it gives you an audio channel, and then you can drag in clap 1 onto there. So that's what I've done. We're going to loop this out. So just click loop, and we'll move it along. And then clap 2, nice and easy. Where is it? This one here. So we have these two types of claps. We have one that's a bit more aggressive, and then one that's a bit metallic and short. So have a listen to them. This one's like the shorter metallic one, quite wide. And that one's very aggressive and big. We're going to turn these both down. The first one, we're going to turn it down to -9 dB. Just type -9. And the second one is going to be -18. Now we listen. Yeah, it's a bit more balanced. We're going to do some processing on them, of course. So the first one, I'll just check. Okay, so one thing we need to do is possibly just clean the audio up a little bit, just shortening it. So you can use this transient shaper here. So it's make sure it's on beats so you can access this. It will say transients, and then you click this one with the kind of wall or the arrow going into the wall. And this is going to make it so you can control the transient. So I'll just solo this this clap by pressing S, and then we'll listen to it. And if we shorten it, it gets rid of a bit of this stuff here, basically, and just makes it so it's the main signal that we're listening to. There we go. Because we don't really want to have like decay tails or reverb tails that are built into the sample. We want to be able to put them in ourselves so we can really shape the sounds. Yeah, and then on the clap 2, we're going to do a similar thing. So we'll double click, press on the arrow thing, and then bring it down to around 61. Oh, solo it. There we go. Nice and short and snappy. Okay, so the processing on this, we're going to do a bit of an EQ. This is just for clap 1, so we're going to just filter it. We don't need any of this low end here. We're going to clean it. So if there's any frequencies here that we don't like, let's just open it up. Maybe around here. Let's just make this a bit sharper. Listen to it. We don't really need this kind of low end bit here, so we'll just cut it away. And we can boost a tiny bit here. And then dip a little bit here. Be careful when you do these EQ cuts on certain samples, just because if you do something like this where you boost the resonant frequency and then go, oh yeah, that sounds really nasty or sharp, especially if you go up here, it will sound nasty and sharp because obviously you're boosting it by 10 dB. So don't do that. Just do little listens like here. See if there's something in the sound that you don't like, and then you can take it away. So if we're going to do this the same as the original, we want to take this away here. This whistling kind of frequency. This will not be the same on every single clap, so bear that in mind. It will be different EQs for each sound. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is put a pedal. This is a great little unit from Ableton. So for this, we want to put it onto fuzz. We're going to bring the dry wet down so it's not super intense. Go to 30%. And we're going to add a bit of gain. And we're going to add a bit of the mids. So that's kind of bringing the sound out a little bit more. I think I'm boosting a little bit too much here. You can see that there's a little bit of clipping, which we don't want. All right, cool. And then we can put another EQ afterwards, just because this pedal can add certain things that maybe we don't want. So you see here it's adding low end. We don't want that, so we're just going to cut that away. Just really focus on this bit here. And then we're going to have a dip here. So it's not too sharp, essentially. And you can just dip a little bit at the end here as well. So this is the main frequency that we're getting. Maybe a bit more. There we go. Nice. All right, cool. Let's move on. Or in fact, sorry, I missed something. We need to add some reverb. So we're going to add 20% on this small reverb. Or to minus 20 dB. There we go. Really nice, short, snappy reverb. It's perfect for claps. And then we're also going to add this this overdrive pedal here. Around 17. So it's basically doubling up on what we've done on this one here. Just adding more bite to the sound. Sounding good. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the second one. Okay, so for this one, we want to put we already have an EQ8 here, but we're going to cut it to around here. This one we're dipping around just before 1K. So we're not getting that kind of frequency. And then we're going to dip again around here. So that frequency there. And we're also going to cut a little bit at the end here. And boost and cut. So adding a bit of air, but then also just making sure we're not getting any of the really high frequencies. Okay, cool. And then we're going to add a saturator to this one. So this one, we're going to use the preset called A Bit Warmer, wherever it is. I just type a bit. This is a preset from Ableton, just for the saturator. Basically just brings out a bit of the volume. We're going to add up to 70% of the dry wet, but then also we're going to do a bit of the makeup for the gain. So as we've added quite a bit of volume, we haven't added 6 dBs of volume, we've added 6 dBs of drive, which will add a certain amount of volume. So for this, we're just going to offset it and put this to minus 7 dB. So you can hear that it makes it feel a little bit more full, but it's not adding volume, it's adding that feeling of it feeling full. Okay, so we're going to add a compressor. For this, we're going to bring the threshold really low down. And then we're going to bring the attack over, so we don't want it to be too aggressive. And what we're doing now is like we're really getting the most out of our clap. We're making it feel nice and full, but we're going to make sure that we offset this. So we need to put some makeup gain for what we've lost. We're going to go to 5 dB. And then we're going to put this at 50%. So it's parallel compression. Again, you can hear that it's making it feel a little bit more full. All right, now, so we're going to add a additional EQ here. Move this along. Maybe boost around here. Dip here. It's a little bit sharp. And then we're boosting with this 4 here. It's already got this nice shelf, which what we want to use. And then we just filter away the end. So one thing to note, what we're doing here is we're EQing to clean up the signal beforehand. Then we're compressing it and boosting it in a sense and making it feel full. So we're making the clean signal feel nice and full. And then we're just tidying up again with another EQ in case any of these are adding things that we don't want, essentially. And there we go. We have a nice clean clap signal. For this one, we're not adding any reverb, but we're going to add a little bit of this pedal. Yeah, around that much, not too much, but just a nice little drive. We have one other element to add to the clap, which is going to be this pre-shift clap. So it's like a little click. I'm going to load it in, and if you have a look at it, it lands before the claps hit, which just gives it a nice little bit of a crack to the clap, which will help it to come through in the mix. We need to make sure that we loop this again. We actually don't need to do any processing on this. We're just turning it down by quite a lot. It really needs to not be too obvious. There we go. So now the clap's feeling really nice and powerful. And we can move on to the next element. All right, so we're just going to add a bit of a complementary layer to these claps here, which is going to be a bit of a Foley loop in a way. So we'll just go to the course folder. And for this, we want to use, this one. So we put it onto the channel, just double click it, put it onto slice mode, and then we transpose it down by 3. So it will choose different parts of the sample. So I'm just playing on my keyboard. As you can see, it's playing different notes in the sample, or different parts of the sample, I should say. So now we're just going to put in some MIDI. And the MIDI that we're going to put in, if you were creating a track from scratch, you'd have to figure this out on your own, something that feels nice and natural, that's complementing the clap groove. I already know what to put in here because I have the notes, but we're basically just going to go to C1, and then C sharp here, and then F, and then G. So we get this kind of thing. Obviously, this will depend on in your own tracks, on the sample that you're using, and the groove that you want. But it's a really nice way of complementing the groove. And then we're going to put another G here, and then we're going to put a F here, and then a F sharp. Sorry, not there. We do it here, and then F sharp there. Cool. So that's what we want. It's a nice little complementary layer. We'll loop it. And then we're going to go to the EQ here and just tidy it up a little bit. And we're also going to add an overdrive. So the overdrive is compressing the sound essentially and really bringing it out. It's a little bit loud though, so we're going to bring it down a bit. There we go. Also, you can hear and you can kind of see that the sample is kind of going left and right. It's got different volumes, so we can just make it so it's just listening to one side. In this case, we go to the right. You can see it's a lot more consistent now. And then what we want to do is actually pan it. So we haven't panned it by doing this, so we're just listening, making sure that we're listening to one side of the signal. And then with this, we want to pan it so that we just got a little bit of different stereo image. Yeah, nice. All right, cool. Let's move on to the next part. All right, so now we're going to do the hi-hats and shakers. For this, we want a drum rack. So just type drum rack and you'll find it. We'll leave this EQ8 as it is for now. We're going to use 3 samples. So we're going to use 2 actually, but one of them is going to be duplicated. So this one, you can put it anywhere, and then we'll duplicate it next to it. And then the other one's going to be this hat sample. We'll draw some MIDI in. For the MIDI, we want, I believe it's, let me just check. Okay, so the first one is going to be like this. So it's just going to be like a kind of a shaker pattern. And like there. So it's hitting on almost every note. We can just duplicate this pattern over. Or you could just loop it from here, which will do the same thing. So we're just going to keep playing this pattern over. The velocity is just going to be a bit quieter on this one, so it kind of grooves nicely. If we listen now, it won't be right, it'll be loud. and we need to really tidy the samples up so they're nice and snappy. So let's go to this first one. We'll put this fade up a little bit. We're going to make this quite short around here. Maybe a bit more. You can take off the snap so it doesn't snap to the grid. We can just listen to this one. Yeah, we want this really, really short part of the sample. Maybe bring the velocity down a bit. You can add a bit of a pitch envelope. Yeah, it's making it a little bit more snappy. And then we go to the second one here. This one's going to be pretty similar, but a little bit bigger. A little bit more loud, I guess. Solo these two. Yeah, that's good. Maybe a bit less on the fade out. Yeah, good. Bring the velocity down a bit. And then the last one is going to be, we're just going to take basically a little sample from this. And I believe it's this one, big one here. So this is basically a great tool to, if you find a loop that you like and you're like, oh, I really like that part of the loop, that sound. This is how you would extract that sound from the loop, basically. So this, we can just fade it. It's always good to do fades so you don't get any clicks. If you have audio that cuts really abruptly, like this, you can sometimes get some clicks that you don't really want. This one, I think, just check the volume. So for on this one, we need to just bring the velocity down on this one as well. This is the volume to velocity ratio. So the higher it is, the more sensitive it will be to velocity, essentially. All right, so we have a nice hat groove now, but we need to, I think maybe just make this a little bit shorter. It's good to have nice, short, snappy drums because it's gonna come through in the mix a lot better. So then we're going to just EQ a little bit here. We're going to add an overdrive. With the overdrive, we're going to bring it down quite a lot. It's actually at 9%. And the dynamics we're going to bring down. So it's compressing it, essentially. And then the next thing we're going to do is set up a sidechain. So you could just grab this from the course photos. I made it earlier. So you could just grab this rack here, but I'm just going to show you how you can make it up. So this is a different way of sidechaining. You can sidechain in quite a few different ways. You can use fancy plugins if you want, like LFO Tool, not fancy, but LFO Tool, Shaperbox, all that stuff. You could use a compressor, which is the most common way, or we can set up a Shaperbox essentially. So we're just going to get this shaper to dip the volume of the sound. We're going to use this type of sidechain for most of the track. So that's why it's good to have it saved. So to use this, and also if you can't find this shaper, it's in Max for Live. So you might need to just Google or go onto the Ableton website and download the Max for Live tools, but you should have it. So for this, we want to set it up this way. So and take off the snap. So it's going to make it so we can move around in the grid a bit easier. We're going to set it up like here, put a bit of a curve to make it smooth. This one we're going to bring over a little bit so it doesn't go too far over. And then we're just going to set this up here so it's nice and smooth as well. Okay, so now we have the shape and we have the timing here. So it's going to dip. It's going to dip like this and then allow the volume to come back up here at this timing. And we need to set that onto something. At the minute it's volume, or at the minute it's nothing. It's not actually modifying anything. So you need to map it to this. And now it's going a bit crazy. I kind of want to listen, but it might be a bit loud. Yeah, sorry about that. It's probably very loud. But you can hear that it's increasing the volume and then it's dipping the volume way too much. So we're going to bring this to 50. So it doesn't give any boosting on the volume. And then we're going to put this at 30. We don't want it to be too low. And now we're getting that nice kind of dipping. And it will groove with the kick a bit better. Bit more volume. All right, cool. So next thing that we're going to do, I think there's a little bit of... Yeah. Okay, so next thing we need to do is add a bit of a boost. So we're going to go on this channel EQ. We can actually put this before the sidechain. Put most things before the sidechain. We can boost here. This channel EQ is essentially pretty similar to the EQ8, but it's a bit more of a bigger curve. But it won't have a different tone to it, so you could use whichever one you want. But I just want to keep it the same as the original. So this has a boost around here, and then a cut actually around here. It's actually quite a big boost here. And then the volume actually is at -27. Pretty quiet, but I think we're going to be doing some boosting in the drum processing, so it'll come up a lot more. All right, and then that's it. So that's it for the hat. We'll just name it hats, and we'll move this over so it's playing the whole loop. The next thing we need is a shaker. So for this, we're going to use a drum rack as well. We're going to do basically a similar thing, almost the same kind of thing. So we're going to set up the shaker, which is this one. Put it here. We can get this MIDI. Just make sure it plays there. Just check the notes. Okay, so the groove on this one is as so. So we'll have it play on all of the hits like this. And then what we want to do is we're going to make this one a bit louder. And also these two. And then this one's going to be a little bit quieter. So the first one's quite quiet. And then we have this kind of groove. So just move this over. So you can hear that it does make a difference to the hats. You're getting that kind of grooving. Right? But what we need to do is we're going to duplicate this over again. And so what we want for the first one is we're going to have it a little bit shorter, so it starts kind of sooner. Maybe don't fade it that much, just a little bit of a fade. Fade it out. And we're going to around here. We can also add a filter onto here, which is this MS2, just a type of filter. And we're going to bring this down quite a lot. So it's at 650. Yeah, very small amount. And then we're going to add the drive. And then the velocity will bring down a bit as well. And and we need to go this way. Yeah. I was thinking this doesn't make any sense. It's just killing the hat. So yeah, make sure that the filter is just filtering. We're basically just filtering this low end, and also adding a bit of volume. I'll just take this on and off so you can hear. So yeah, we filter that quite a bit. And then the second part here is just going to be a small part of this. It's just going to be like this kind of end here. And what we need to do with the MIDI is we need this to play off it. So they're basically being on top of each other. This one has a bit of a filter on it. Bring it down a bit. So it's not so bright as the other one. Bit of resonance. Actually, we can add a bit of drive as well. Okay, nice. So now we need to... Okay, cool. So now we're just going to do a little bit of tidying. We're going to just get rid of these really highs. especially this bit here. It's just a little bit sharp. It is very loud as well, so obviously we're going to turn this down by quite a lot. Let's just go to, this one's at minus 27 as well. And then we want this volume pump. So we can just take this from here. We'll put it together. And then we just drag. Make sure you hold down Control as you're dragging it, and it will duplicate it. So you can see it's on both channels now. All right. Okay. So this one needs to be 22. Sorry, not 27. So this one's a bit louder. This layer is more just complementing our shaker layer. Yeah, nice. There's a little bit of drive on this one, so a bit of the overdrive. Very nice, clean drums that we have here. All right, so let's now move on to the next step. All right, so the last element in the drums is going to be an additional kind of perk loop that we're going to make. So we're going to grab from the course folder, and I believe it's this weird one. Yeah. And with this, again, we're going to put onto slice mode. But then we're going to put a pitch modifier. So again, when something is in slice mode, the pitch will just determine what samples are going to be used. So in this case, we have it on minus 17. That won't mean that the samples will get pitched by minus 17. It will mean that it's just choosing samples that are lower down. So let me just bring this up. Yeah. If I take this off, so what I'm doing right now, if I press C3, take this off, it's going to play a different sample. So the Solancho, when he made the track, he wanted the samples that were at this range, so that's where we're going to put it. We're going to put a bit of a filter on here with this PRD, just to be using the drive. The other filters don't have the drive on, so that's why I'm assuming he used this one. And it's on 12. And then the velocity is all the way down on this one. All right, cool. It's also EQ'd it here quite heavily. So let's do this. So we're not getting any of the low end or the super highs. And then for the MIDI, we're going to do a, let me just get it. So for the MIDI, we're going to have a D3, D sharp, and then E. Ooh, my mouse is being weird. And then a D sharp again. So then you can just duplicate that over. You don't need to worry about the velocity because it's just the same. And now we have a rolling perk, which is just a really nice way of keeping the tempo up and adds a bit of drive to the track. We do need to take this shaper and put it on here because it's playing constantly. And now you can already hear that it's grooving a lot better. For this, we're going to bring the volume down to -9. And then we're going to add a bit of volume, a bit of reverb, which is this medium one. Yeah, around 15. Which puts it into quite a nice space. And I believe that's it. Maybe a little bit of a dip here. Yeah, just a little bit more faint. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is add groove to all of these drums. So they're all going to sit in the same swing and groove. If you don't know what groove is or swing is, I'll show it you so you can really hear it. It's basically just moving the timing of the notes so they swing a little bit. So let's just put it on and we'll see. So when you use groove, you do need to put it on pretty much everything. So we'll put it on the kick. We'll put it on the claps. And you can just drag from here. Let me reset this so it's normal. Onto here. Onto here. Now everything will have the swing on it. If you're not sure, you can just double click and it will be here in this little window. Now if we listen, you can hear it swinging a lot more. If I take this off so you hear it before and after. So you can hear it's really swinging, like especially if you turn it on and off, you really notice it. But we don't want it that strong, so we just bring the timing down to about 30%. Yeah, nice. So we're getting a little bit of that movement, just so it feels a little bit more natural and not so robotic. Really important to have groove on your track. It does make a big difference. All right, so let's do a bit of drum processing before we move on to the synths. This is something we could do at the end. You could just listen to everything together and then do the processing, but we can adjust things when we have everything together at the end anyway. It's good, as I said before, it's good to have everything sounding nice and solid before you move on. So yeah, let's get a glue compressor. So with a compressor, the idea, what we want to do is to kind of like bridge the gap between the loudest elements and the more quieter elements. So we're compressing the overall signal. So all of the drums together are going to be compressed a little bit closer together. These are the settings that you might want to have for drums, maybe a bit looser on the release. So the reason you have a loose attack, so this means an aggressive attack. This is loose or slow. It would be because you want the transients to be able to come through. If you really heavily compress it, like this, it could sound really nice. Like you could do this with certain compressors and it can sound quite nice and crunchy and full, but maybe you want to use it in parallel. Right? And this is you can hear when you do that, it kind of kills the crack or the snap of the drums. If I loosen the attack, and we just loosen the ratio a bit, and now we'll play through the attack, and this is what makes the biggest difference with the compressor. So you can hear with really slow attack, it's basically not doing much compression at all. A big part of the snap or the initial transient is coming through quite a lot. So we want like a bit of a medium. So we're grabbing a bit of the transient, but we're not killing it too much. And then the release just determines how long it will hold down that volume for. We essentially just want it to reset after every hit. Okay, and then we're going to bring this threshold to around 28. So we're getting about 5 dBs of gain reduction, and then we need to make up for a bit of that. So with the makeup, you're bringing up the volume that you've kind of took away. So the next thing we want to add is some saturation. And we're going to add a bit of drive, so like 6 dB of drive. We need to offset the volume, so bring this down by 6 dB, and then we leave everything as it is. You can hear that's making it feel a little bit more full. Got an EQ on here. The EQ is just going to be for some tidying. This will depend on your drum, so you won't do the same settings every time. But a big harsh cut, so we put it onto this harsh one here, like a brick wall. Get rid of anything that's below these frequencies. And then we're going to just do a little bit of a dip just after 1K, it looks like. Yeah, it's just making that little frequency a bit less harsh. And then there's a little bit more tidying here that we need to do. Yeah, so let's get rid of like these really sharp ones. There was another one in here. As I think I've said before, like try to be a little bit careful with this dipping, because you can kill kind of what's good about the sound if you take away too much. So everything quite subtle, and we're just doing an overall boost on the highs. And then there's a cut just right at the end here. I think this is a little bit too, yeah. was there. Okay, and then there's another EQ8 on here, and it's got a huge boost. So it's got like, I think it's this number 4 that we're going to use. Huge boost of 7 dB. And then we're going to dip here at the end, quite harsh. So there's like a brick wall, but the brick wall is very far over. This 2 here, we need to just bring this to around here. So we're actually boosting here as well. Maybe make this a little bit more curved. Like that. So this is tidying the signal, and then we're boosting it to make it nice and loud and clear. The overall drum group then will come down by 5 dB. And then we're going to add a bit of this small reverb to the whole group by 24. And then we're going to add 21 to the overdrive. All right, let's have a listen to the processing on and off. Obviously, the volume has increased greatly, but what I want you to mostly listen to is how the quieter elements of the drums are a lot louder, and there's a bit more of a less dynamic range. So there's so like the claps, for example, aren't greatly louder than the hats and the perks and things like that. So everything's a little bit more glued together. I think there's something a little bit harsh here. Let's just grab it. Yeah, that one. So we'll just move that one over. Yeah, there we go. It's this guy here. It was a bit sharp. All right, cool. So that's our drum processing. Now let's start the synths. All right, so the next part of this course is a bit of a beast. It's going to be the main synth. So when you're making your own projects, there's many, as I said at the start, there's many different ways you can start the project. Some people will start with this element that we're doing now. Other people might start with like a drone to give them an idea of some kind of harmonics or some chords or something like that. So it's completely up to you how you would start your project, but it's a good idea to try and get like the main element in there nice and early, so then you can do the other elements around it essentially. So for this, we're going to use Diva. And we are not going to make this from scratch, but I'm going to just talk through what's in this. So we'll go to this course folder, and we're going to use this lead Talk crowns. So if we just break down what's going on with this sound, it isn't as complicated as it might look. If you're new to Diva, this might look incredibly complicated. But what's going on is we just have a sawtooth. You can see if you look at the volume here, the volume is down on these bottom two. So these correlate with each other. The volume is linked to this. So that means there's no volume on these two. Well, there's just volume on this one, and it's up on a sawtooth. So we're just listening to a sawtooth, and it's at the 8th range. There's this sync on, but we're not actually using the volume on this, so this won't make any difference, the sync, so you can leave it on and off. And then the feedback is just adding a bit of warmth, and then we have a bit of noise. That's it. So that's the voice of this sound. And then if we go to the filter section, we have a pretty low cutoff here. And then it's opening up with an envelope 2. So if I just play the sound, if I take off this envelope 2, what we're listening to is just the amplitude of the sound, which is determined by envelope 1. So it comes in straight away because the attack's really slow. If I brought this up, it'll take a while, but if I have it really quick, it comes in straight away and it sustains. So as long as I hold the note down, it will stay there. So that's the main like amplitude of the sound, but then there's no real like life or movement to it. So then you use the envelope 2 to add that movement. Also, there's an additional modification to the cutoff filter, which is this mod wheel. So if I move this mod wheel up, that's going to also open up the cutoff filter. So it's a really nice way, as if you're just playing along and you want to, you know, have some little accents as you're going through. You can easily access that with your mod wheel if you have a mod wheel. And we are going to be modulating all of these things as we make the sound. If we go to the effects section, there's a bit of chorus, just adding some nice width. It's quite subtle, as you can see that the wet's really low, so it's not too heavy. And then we've got a bit of glide going on. So it's gliding between the notes, which is really nice. It's not too aggressive. You can see here that the range is quite low. If this was all the way over, it would glide quite a lot. There it's a bit more subtle. And that's it. There's nothing else crazy going on with the sound. Nothing in the trimmers or anything like that. That is the general gist of this sound. So now we need to go to... Oh, sorry, yeah. Another thing is that the velocity and the key tracking is modifying the how the sound reacts. So if we go up and down the keyboard, that's going to open the cutoff filter more and close it more. And if I play harder, the envelopes are a little bit more aggressive. And if I play harder, the envelopes are a little bit more aggressive because they are reacting to it. So it's velocity sensitive, which is good. That's what we want. All right, cool. So now let's go into the sound design. One thing we actually need to have is a ARP. And then with the ARP, we're going to turn this off for now, and we'll put it on after we've done like the MIDI and everything. The processing, we have a channel EQ. It's just a little bit of a dip here. And it's got this harsh curve. The dip is at 5 dB. Something like that. And there's a little bit of a boost, like 1 dB here. And there is an even smaller dip boost here as well. Okay, and then we have a utility. Oh, sorry, we have an overdrive. And then there's a utility to kind of offset the volume that we're going to add with the overdrive, basically. So with this, we have the... Sorry, I'm trying to look at the screen at the same time. We have the width at like 6 point something, yeah, around there. And then we have the drive at 20%. The tone is going to be at 100%. And then the dry wet is at 10%. So it's really quite low. Dynamics are all the way down. It's adding a little bit of saturation, not much, quite subtle. And then we have a volume dip here of 1 dB. Oh, set that to minus 1 dB. So that, because this will be adding a bit of volume, so this is just making up for that. And then we have a little EQ here, just to tidy things up. So a boost, a dip here, and then we're going to have an EQ8 here. And then we're just going to make this a little bit shorter here. This won't be so apparent right now because we don't have the notes in place. But when we do it all, you'll see that it will make sense to have that kind of dip. We got a delay on here. The delay is currently about 20%. And this is here. And we have these kind of offset in the timing. So we have 2. No, sorry, they are together. Both at 2. And then there's a bit of a filter. So you filter in the delay to make sure you're not getting any of the real lows or real highs. And this is going to give it a nice bit of... just a nice little delay tail. And then there's a fair bit of this reverb, which is at 9 dB. A little bit less. And then the drive is being used as well, the pedal. Bring that to 12. All right, cool. So now we've got a really nice lead sound. So let's now put in the MIDI. All right, so with the MIDI, what we need to do is you need to put the scale into F minor. So you see here, F minor, and then if you collapse it, like I've already done, it will make it so you can only see the notes that are in the F minor scale. It's just kind of so we're following certain rules that the music will go by, so that everything will sound nice and stable. And but you can make very interesting music without following these rules and going outside of scales, a bit like what they do with jazz. But yeah, in this case, and a lot of the time with melodic house, you want to stay in the rules. So we're going to do this we're going to start with F. We're going to play on this note here. Make sure you have it on 16s, and then you're going to hit it on this second F. Just like that. And then the other one is going to be an F above. And then there is a gap, and then this lands on the kind of the hat hit, which is the 1, 2, 3. Yeah, just like that. You can duplicate that. I believe the velocity, needs to be around 80. That way the volume will be consistent with the original project. And let me just make this. Okay, so this is the main rhythm that we have with our melody. And we can just duplicate this over so we have the same pattern, but we're going to move the notes up. So this is going to go to A flat or G sharp, and then this top one is going to be on the G. So it should sound like this. And then the next part, if you wanted, you could just duplicate this all the way over, because we're going to use the same timing. But this is going to go down to the F again, and then this goes up by 1 semitone from the G. And then the last part is, well, we're going to make this quite a bit bigger. We'll just duplicate this over and duplicate this. So because the melody goes for quite a while. Okay, so for this next part, we're going to keep this F going. And yeah, we keep this going as well. But this is going to go, it's going to stay just like this. And then just for the last one, we're going to move this over. In fact, I've done this wrong. It needs to go over in this section here. So we're actually going to keep this going into the 6. And then this one goes up. And then we're going to bring this to the C. And this is going to be on a E flat or D sharp. And then it ends with a little E flat here as well. So this note. So let's have a listen to it. The ending, it will come back to the F. And this is going to be on the F as well. So it's just going to repeat this kind of pattern at the end. I'll just duplicate this over. So you can hear that it repeats nicely. It's got some variance in there, which is great. And harmonically, it's very pleasing. Let's now do a little bit of automation. On this sound, there is a huge amount of automation going on. And we're actually going to look at the original project when we do most of the automation on this, because there is so much. It's quite hard for me to memorize every single point. So the first thing that we're actually going to automate is this arpeggio, but we need to set it up first. So for this, we turn it on before you do any changes on it. We'll leave it on up, and then we change this to 16 notes. So one thing that we need to do so the arpeggio actually works is we need to make the notes a bit bigger. So at the minute they're on 16 notes, but we want to make them 2 16 notes essentially. right? And so what we want is that kind of groove and timing. We don't want it all the time. We just want it every now and again. So what we do is we set this up here so it's going to react to velocity, and we're going to put it on re-trigger. It's going to re-trigger the notes. So it's kind of like doubling them up. And we are going to add this step every now and again, but we can just automate that later on. The gate needs to be a bit bigger. That almost makes it a little bit less snappy. Nice. Okay, so we're going to automate this every now and again. I'm just going to have a look where the automation notes are. Okay, so the automation that we want to do is we turn this on, and at 54, there's a little bit of a spike. So it's just on this last note. And then we're going to do it again on the 56, around here, and then again on 57. So it's just these last notes essentially. Yeah, just like that. And then on 58 again. And this one's a bit bigger. So this one's like that. Yeah, that's like that. And then the next one is not until 60, I believe. Yeah, 60. Yes. So it's good to have this as variance rather than it being the same all the way through. That's what the whole point of automation. So yeah, let's have a listen now. See, so it's really nice. It's adding this little bit of a change in groove. One thing we need to do is actually put this swing on here, so it's swinging with the track. Yeah, that's loads better. And we're gonna do some other automation with within the sound. So we're gonna play with this glide. I think it's this one that we're gonna play with. So we'll just touch it, and it comes up as an option. So I just clicked on it. We're also gonna play with this. So I just click on that, and I believe the cutoff filter as well. And we're also going to play with the pitch envelope, which we're going to do externally. So if we want to do the macro controls with the mod wheel controls, so to keep them exactly the same as the original project, I believe when he recorded the synth, he probably would have just played them in himself and just played along with the mod wheel. We're not going to do that in this case. We want it to be exactly the same. So we're going to copy the modulation so it's the same. So this is how you access it. You go into the MIDI control, and then you click on this little thing, which is like automation. You can see this dot line and a dot. It means automation. And then we can go through all these controls here, and we go on the MIDI control, and then we choose mod wheel. Okay, so what we want to do for this is we're going to bring the level up to around 35, yeah, around here, and then we're gonna have a bit of a spike on the first note. So if you just click little points, it's gonna make it a bit easier for you to move around. So we have a bit of a spike here. So you hear that it's opening up a little bit. Maybe make this curve. So just hold down Alt so you can do a bit of a curve. So we're just trying to exaggerate not this first one, but the second note essentially. Maybe come back a little bit, just like that. And then this can come down a bit here. And then we're going to do a big spike. Looks at around here, going up to 5. So we'll put another point here. So it's exciting the sound. Obviously, it's opening it up, and then there's a dip here. So the dip is around 6.5. So we go 6 here, and it's around on this note here, and then we curve, and then we're going to go back up here. So from this point, and then we go right up, pretty much to the end. And then this dips back down on just halfway into the last note. This actually dips a bit here, so there's a little marker here. And it's like this. And there we go. That should be pretty much the same. This actually dips a bit. So you can hear that we're getting these kind of waves of sound, which is really, really nice. Makes it nice and dynamic. With the pitch, we actually need to change that as well. Okay, so with the pitch, we go here on pitch bend. It mostly stays the same and normal, but then there's a little change at the end. And we're going to do like this. The reason we're doing this now, because we're going to do a lot of automation at one point in the track, or in the course, sorry, where we're going to be doing most of the automation. But the reason we're doing this now is because when we drag this MIDI clip over, when we do the arrangement, it's going to be a lot easier for us if we have the automation already in place on most of the clips. Otherwise, we're going to be doing it individually every time. So let's have a listen to this curve. So it's a little dip at the end. I think I've got this about right. It looks like it's a little bit less actually, and it goes to like here. So we could just click here, so we listen to that pitch bend. So it's just adding this kind of detune at the end. It's quite a nice bit of character. Okay, so the other thing we're adding is glide here. So we're just going to click A to bring up the automation. So I don't think I mentioned that before, but if you press A, it will bring up this red line. And then we go to Diva, and we go to the glide, and we want to put it at 57 to 58. So it's around here, and it's just on this last note. Yeah, it's between them. So, and it goes to around 31. Yeah, around there. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, very subtle, but as we move this along in the track, it's going to be a lot more obvious, especially when we're doing other automation. And then the other thing we want to do is play with the cutoff filter and the frequency depth mod. All right, so the other parts of automation, the cutoff filter and the frequency depth mod, which is envelope 2, this one here. We're going to do this later on when we do all the automation, because it's more over a long period of time that we're going to do the changes. Just get the volume right on this. So we're going to bring it down by -6 dB. And that is it for all of the processing and a bit of the automation for now. So let's move on to the next part. All right, so now let's move on to the bass. So we're going to have a nice big sustained bass to go along with this groove that we have. So what we want to do is we're going to get Diva open. So I have it here. And we're not going to do anything just yet with the sound design. We're going to fix it in a minute. But first, let's get the MIDI in. So we'll just make a clip this long. Make sure you're in F minor just because it makes it a bit easier. And we're going to go on to C sharp on the 3. Or say D flat or C sharp. So we're going to start with this. This is going to go to the 2. And then a similar length note on the B flat or A sharp. But this is going to cut short by 2 16 notes. And then we're going to have an F. To make sure you have it on 16 notes, press right click and then go to here, and you'll be able to get it so it's exactly the same. And then we put this all the way over to the G sharp, to 5. And then we go to G sharp, which will be A flat. So I'm just going to take this off so you can see that it's not, it'll flip to sharp rather than flat. It just depends on the scale that you're in. So yeah, these are the notes if you take off the scale. And then we go to A sharp here. And then down to F. So same thing basically. But there's a little bit of variance with the notes here, as you can see. And then this, we need to make sure that it's not overlapping. Yeah. Let's just solo it for now. Yep, that is our progression. So now we need to go into the sound and make it nice and bassy and warm and all that jazz. So let's have a look. Now, if you just want to grab the sound, we do have the preset already there for you. It is, where are we? Here. And it will be this one. But we're going to make it from scratch so you guys can learn a bit of sound design. So I'll just initial this. And then we're going to just go in from the oscillator section. So we're going to have the 3 oscillators that are going to be used. But one of them is going to be a little bit more quiet, so the middle one here. And then this one's a little bit more quiet as well. So it's mostly this top oscillator. We need to detune them. So drop them down by an octave. This one's going to go up. And then we're going to detune by 5th, which is going to add like a chord essentially. So listen. All right, we take that away. So you need that 5th in there. Let's make this one a little bit more quiet. And this one a little bit less. Let's add a bit of feedback for warmth and a bit of noise. Okay, so now we'll do the filter section. So we're just going to close the filter down a little bit. Oh, sorry, I missed one other thing. We're going to sync these 2 oscillators together. So the syncing, it's a little bit confusing, but there's 2 buttons here. So the top one represents this second oscillator, and this one represents the bottom one. And by syncing, it means that you're syncing the speed of the oscillators together, which just makes it so there's no kind of change in pitch or detune or any movement. Sometimes when you detune things like this, so you can hear that it's adding the detune. It's also kind of wobbling the sound, creating a bit of an LFO. But then if I sync it, we do still have the 5th here, but if I sync it, I personally like the sound of that, but some people don't, and we want to keep it exactly the same as the original. So yeah, we sync this together, bring this 5th back in, and then the next thing is just filtering it down as I did before, around here. We want to control the envelopes here. Put it into analog. With analog, it just means that we have control over the release. With ADS, you don't have control. It's just a button, and it will just be a set amount, which can be a little bit annoying sometimes if you want real control over the sound. So with the amplitude of the sound, which is this one here, we're going to bring down the sustain a bit. So around there. Bring the decay to around there, and a little bit of a smooth attack. So it's a bit of a growling. It's not super aggressive. Bit of release. And then with envelope 2, bring it to just after this notch here. It's going to be similar in a way. It's going to have like this, and then a bit more of a growl here. By growl, I mean that kind of like gradual. Not really a growl, is it? I don't know what it is. But yeah, that's what we want. We want it to react to velocity. Though, in fact, this won't make too much of a difference because we're not doing too much with the velocity in this case. But if you was doing differences in velocity through the bass, then you would want this to react to it. Okay, cool. The next thing is adding a bit of FM. This is filter modulation, so it's this first oscillator which is modulating this cutoff filter. It essentially just adds a bit of this kind of like dirt and fizz. Yeah, so you can play around with that. That's quite nice like there. Okay, so let's move down to here. We'll put it into mono. Won't make too much difference because we're not playing notes that are overlapping, but just do it anyway. And then put the chorus on, and then we're going to put the amount. We're actually leaving the amount all the way over, but we're going to bring the depth and the rate down so it's not too crazy. So the rate is kind of in between here, and the depth is here. So now the bass is super wide, which is really nice. Not like overly wide, but it's adding a really nice bit into the stereo field. Next thing is we just need to go into the trimmers, and we're going to bring down this detune and this voice drift. So as it cycles through the 8 voices of the sound, it's not going to detune them or make them a little bit different. That's kind of like an analog thing. If you've ever owned a bit of analog gear, like I have a Moog, the voices kind of drift from each other sometimes. It can be a little bit annoying, but it also can add this kind of unique character on every hit. We're also going to just put this to VCF reset. It's just going to make it more consistent. Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. I think that is it for the sound. Just double checking. Oh no, one more thing. So we need to add this add here. So the add is just going to be 2 modulation sources added together, and we need to put something into that. So you see add here. You could put loads of different things together, but in this case we're going to put velocity and pressure. It's just going to make it so the velocity is going to react with the synth a little bit more. Close it down a bit. Cool, so we got a nice kind of detuned synth. Let's just let me just reset that to make sure it's the same. It's nice and wide, it's meaty. So now we need a bit of processing. I have this EQ8 here. It's just doing a small little high pass. Just make sure you do a similar thing so we don't get the real like subby parts here. We don't really need that in the sound. And then we got a little bit of a dip, which has been done here with the 3, and it's on this notch here. I believe it's probably just to get rid of a bit of mud. Yeah, it's a little bit muddy there. And then there's another dip just kind of here with a bit of a less, yeah, like that. So it's just this frequency here. And then we're going to put a little bit of a cut at the end, or a low pass. So we're not having too much of that buzz. All right, cool. And then we add some saturation. With the saturation, it's just 6 dBs of drive, and then minus 6 dB on the output. So I'm not sure if I've explained this before, but with saturation and overdrive and things like that, they add volume when you add things like drive. So then you kind of want to offset that, because you don't want to just be tricked into thinking it's better because it's louder. You actually want to know, okay, it's adding this kind of feeling, this glue, this kind of like, saturation. I don't know how else to describe it. We're also going to put soft clip on. So it's just if it goes over a certain bit of volume, it's going to stop it from sounding like, giving it nasty digital distortion. And that is it. There's nothing with the color or anything like that. Then we have a bit of glue compressor or compression. With the glue compressor, we're leaving it as it is. We're doing 9 dBs of gain reduction. And then we're making up for that with 2 dB. Yeah, and then the last thing is another EQ. And this EQ has a bit of a dip here. I think it's this kind of shape. Yeah, like this. And then we're dipping again at the end with a 4. Yeah, and I'm guessing this here is it's just to get rid of a bit of the sub. It's a bit dominant and a bit heavy. Okay, and then the last thing is going to be that volume pump that we had before, or the side chain. So let's grab it from here. I think I put it on. Yeah, we'll just grab it, put it over onto the bass, and I believe the settings are the same. Yeah, they're all exactly the same. Nice. And then the volume is going to be at -9. And then the there's a little bit of reverb. And then a bit of this pedal as well. Nice. All right. Yeah, let's listen to it all the way through. We are going to automate it, so it's going to open up a little bit, but we'll do that in the automation stage. Listen to it in context, actually. Nice. All right, cool. Let's move on to the next step. All right, so the next step is just a little rhythmical pluck, like a piano pluck. I'll just close this down. And yeah, so we're going to go into the racks again, into the course. And it's this one here, this piano rack PML. This is a normal kind of piano rack, like the grand piano you can get in Ableton, but it's got this piano FUD added to it, which is just going to give it a bit of a authentic feel, essentially. We will not do any processing just yet, but we're just going to draw in the MIDI. For the MIDI, it's just going to be playing the root note, so this F. And we're playing quite high up, so we're going to play a note here, drag that out, and then another one here, and then another one here, I believe, yeah, so like that. The velocity is the same, and then we just copy this over, yeah, till there, so we can just drag it to here. So you can hear that it's on that same rhythm. Obviously it's very loud and distracting, so we're not going to keep that playing. It actually won't really play when this lead's playing. There'll be another element that which will do that. So yeah, for the processing, just bring it up. So for the processing, we need to have a bit of a velocity modifying. So we're going to go here. Oh, I did that wrong. Just take that off. We need to put it at the start. So it's just going to adjust the velocity. This is essentially making it a bit quieter. Maybe around 42. Yeah, there's good. And then we're going to do a reverb on here. The reverb's called Piano Hall. So you can just type Piano Hall and then go on all results and it will be in here somewhere. Or just go on to audio effects, then reverb, hybrid reverbs, and then it's there. So for this, we're just going to bring it down a little bit to 28%. We can turn this one off for now. EQ it. Yeah, that's good. And now we're going to have a utility. This is going to do a similar thing to the last one where it's just playing on one side. I think that's probably because of this FUD. Sorry, not like that. Like this. So you can see visually on here, it centers it from this being on the right. All right, so now that's making it so it's consistent. And now we want to add some saturation. You're going to notice that you use a lot of saturation overdrive on things because it's a way of compressing something and also adding more harmonics to something, so it makes it a little bit more rich. So we add 6 dBs of drive and that's it. We don't make up for the gain. Okay, so this next thing, I actually wanted to watch a little video on what this was doing, but it's quite a cool little thing. You can do this in many different ways, but we're going to add an auto filter. And if you press Control G or Command G, so we're going to duplicate this essentially. So you click on this one here, and then we duplicate this. So we're going to use is called parallel filters. So one of them is going to be adding drive, and then the other one isn't, and then we're going to kind of mix them in. So the first one, this is the one that's going to add the kind of drive. So for this, we can name it. So we can call this like drive, and then call this dry. And then so for this one, it's closed down a bit to around 800 or 850. And then there's a little bit of a resonance, 21, something like that. We need to change the filter so we can add drive to it. So now you have this drive option. We can add drive by 4%. And that looks about it, I think. Yeah. Okay, so then this one, if we just take this this one off, so we just listen to the drive one, it's adding that kind of character to it. And we'll listen to the other one now. This one I think we need to set up pretty similar, but not with any drive. Yeah, this one's filtering down as well. And also, yeah, that's it. Oh, no resonance. Sorry, take away the resonance. So if we just listen to this one, take this off. And then we'll listen to this one. So it's adding resonance in this little area here. And then you're just choosing to how much of this you want to use. And in this case, we have it down to minus 11 dB. And we put this one back on. And it's just cleaning it up, obviously, because we're taking away a bit of the high end, but it's just adding this nice little bit of warmth with the drive in there. Cool. And so then the next thing is we have an EQ8. Oh, I've already got one there. And then we're going to add a little bit of a boost here. And then an EQ, they're just closing off the end, so there's nothing too sharp. Okay, cool. And then the last thing is a delay. With the delay, the timing is offset. So we have one at 2 and then one at 6. And then we're going to bring the feedback down a little bit. And we're going to bring this down to 21. Filter it. Oh, in fact, this filter is off, but we can just put it on. Not going to make too much of a difference. And then the timing is actually offset on this a little bit. So it's not perfectly on the grid. This is at 1.6, something like that. It's quite subtle, this delay. It's not too heavy. It's quite nice. Just adding a little bit of stereo information. The last thing is, or last two things, is another auto filter. And I believe this will be used as we are automating through the track. So as we're doing the arrangement, we'll want to filter this down and open it up. For now, we'll just leave it there. It's got 19 on resonance. And this also has drive as well. Okay, so we'll just add that on. And we've got 4 dBs, 5 dBs of drive on this. So it's just making it a bit louder. There is also a utility on here, which we're going to use to automate the volume at the end. We're not going to do anything right now. We can just leave it as it is, but eventually we're going to automate that down. One other thing I forgot to mention is just the volume control here. So we need to just bring this down by to minus 6 dB. So go around here. And then we're also going to add a little bit of panning to the left. So you see how we have some elements earlier that were on the right, so like the perk and stuff. Now we have something else on the left. So there's a little bit of stereo imaging that we're doing here. All right, cool. Now we'll move on to the next bit. All right, so at this point in the project, your track should sound a little bit like this. This piano won't play here at the same time. You can hear that it's not really complementing the main groove. When we drop into the main groove and the main drop, it would just be this. All right, but now we need to build a few more complementary elements, or quite a few more. So let's build another synth, which is going to be done with Diva. And this is going to be basically another layer of this piano. So the same MIDI, we can just drag it down, and we'll just do it over here. And we can leave the velocity and everything as it is, leave it on this F4. And what we want to do is we can go to the course folder and we can grab the sound. Where are we? PML here. Synth stab, that's the one. And what we'll do is, well, we can just have a look at what's going on with the sound. This isn't actually a very complicated sound at all. All it is a square wave. You can see here. You see the volume is down on these other two oscillators, so it's just this square wave that we're listening to. It is being synced to the other two oscillators, but we're not actually listening to them, so it won't make much difference. So you don't really need to look at these. It's just purely a square wave with a bit of feedback. The feedback will add a bit of warmth. Then there's quite a bit of noise going on with it. And then it's just being filtered down. And you can see it's quite a plucky shape. So you have a very quick attack, very low decay, pretty low decay, no sustain, and a little bit of release. That will naturally create a bit of a pluck. You have a sound quickly coming in and then quickly leaving and then not sustaining. So that's going to create that pluck, right? And then we have this envelope 1, which is attached to the cutoff filter. So it's going to open up a little bit more. Let's have a little listen. So that's just the amp envelope. And then we add the envelope 1. We'll just put it back to where it was. And that's all it is, just a nice, like, simple pluck. Nothing too crazy that we need to do with it. But we're going to do a little bit of layering. So if we just highlight the Diva patch, press Control G or Command G. Sorry, I've got something in the way on my screen. Let's see. Okay, and then you duplicate it. So this is going to be the noise layer. And the purpose of this is to separate the noise and the synth layer. So what we want to do, we can actually just name this synth. And then on this layer, so the noise layer, we're going to put a auto filter. You could also use an EQ, but basically what we want to do is just take away the low end of the sound. So we're going to do this and bring it to around 800, something like that. We can make it a little bit looser. And that's it, no drive or anything like that. But we do also need to do something in this patch. So what's happening now is we have two instances of Diva, right? So we need to treat them a little bit different. This noise one doesn't need the square wave. So we take off the square wave and it's just a noise now. If I solo it, we've got this layer. Okay, and I'm just going to check one thing. Yeah, we want it to be a little bit more open, so we're going to bring the cutoff filter up to just below this 4 mark. And we're going to take off the chorus, and we're going to take off the reverb. So it's just like a clean noise sound, essentially. That's it. We don't need to do anything else on the sound, I believe. Not yet. That's all good. And then we can just go back to the Diva patch. And, well, in fact, we can leave everything now. We just want to turn down the noise layer. We don't want it to be too dominant, so we're going to bring it to -10. And then play them together. Okay, nice. So one thing that we need to do now is just do a bit of processing on this sound. So we have a little bit of an EQ with some boosting in this top end. So this is going to be equalizing both of the sounds together because it's out of this separate chain or this separate group. If I wanted something to be on an individual channel, I would click on it and then would drag it inside this group. But we've got it outside of it, so it does the whole channel. So all the sounds within the channel. And so then we want a little bit of boosting here. And yeah, we're going to cut. That's all good. You can do a little bit of a filter here at the end. We now want a delay. And we're going to put this on 2 and 6. So we're just offsetting the timing a little bit. And then we bring this to 30%. And the feedback, yeah, both 30%. And we can offset the timing of this a little bit more. So this is going to be at like 3. Put this at 1. So now it's like dancing around our head a little bit, which is nice. We have a further EQ. Just copy this one over. And then just do the changes. There's a little bit of a boost on this one now, and then a dip here. Little dip there. Yeah, all good. And then we're going to have a utility on here, but we're going to use this eventually. It's not going to be now. It's going to be to do some automation on the volume through the track because this sound's coming through. So this is our synth layer. And let's just check the volume. So this is at -14. I might not have mentioned in the last video, but the piano needed to be at -6. So make sure that you've got that turned down to -6. So we'll play it with the piano. One other thing actually is we can put this one a little bit lower. So we'll put it to the octave below. Yeah, there we go. All right, cool. That's the synth layer. Now we will move on. Okay, so the next part's going to be some chords to complement the other elements in the track. We're going to make some sub chords, and then we're going to make some higher up chords or main chords. So we're going to use Diva for this, as we are with all the sounds pretty much. We'll make the patch now, and then we'll do the chords. Or I'll just get some notes in. So it's going to be a similar notes to the bass progression, but I think we're just going to add in the fifth. So I'll just press Control C and then Control V, and that's copy and paste this clip. And we want this actually to be a little bit lower. So it's going to be here. And what we can do actually, was going to be a lot quicker, is if we just add the fifth onto this. So just make sure it's the right notes. Yeah, so just add the G sharp here, which is going to be the fifth up from the C sharp. So that's the fifth up, which is the perfect fifth essentially. And it works with pretty much every scale. I put this in the effects chain, which is wrong. Let's bring this up here. And so now let's make the sound. We'll have a listen to it. Really nice patch, this initial patch in Diva. But we're just going to change it a little bit. So first we will do the voicing. So it's going to be the sawtooth. We're going to bring it up an octave. Yeah, that's in the right range. And now we need to close it down a little bit. So we're going to close it down with the with the envelope 2, which is actually being modified by lag. But in this case, we want to bring it down. So change it to envelope 2, so it bypasses the lag modification. And then we bring this over to around here. And then we open the cutoff filter up a little bit. Now we need to do some changes on the envelopes to make it act a little bit different. So we'll change these to analog, so we have full control over the release. What we want with the envelope 1, which is the amp envelope, we're going to bring the decay a little bit higher, bring the sustain to around the line, and then the release, we can leave it there actually, it's all good there. And then envelope 2, we're going to bring the attack up, bring the decay, well we can leave the decay there, bring the sustain up a little bit, and the release can stay there a little bit higher. Okay, cool. You can leave the velocity modification there, and you can actually leave pretty much everything else in the sound. But we're going to add some chorus, so we'll take off the reverb, add the chorus, and with this chorus we're going to around 10 o'clock, and then the rate and depth is going to be pretty high. Change this to classic. You can hear that these make quite a bit of a difference. Especially if you exaggerate it. So yeah, it's good to flick through them and know which ones you like, which is going to suit your sound best. In this case, we have it on classic. It's just adding a little bit of like wobble. I'm not fully sure how chorus works, but I like the sound of it. It's a nice way of adding width and some depth to your sound. So yeah, that is pretty much it for the sound design. I don't think we need to do anything else. Just double checking. Yep, that's all good. And then we do a little bit of processing. Nothing too crazy, but we had this Echo Canyon. Echo, what's it called? Ethereal Canyon. Sorry. So type that into the search bar. It's going to be a type of Echo. It's just like a preset from Ableton. Have a listen to it. Really, really nice. So quite a bit of feedback with it though, so we'll just bring it down a little bit. So what's happening is it's echoing, and then it has this really nice reverb built into it, with quite a big decay. So it's just adding this nice sense of space. We'll bring this dry wet down a little bit. Really good unit, this Echo unit. It's got a lot of uses to it. And I think we're also going to filter that. Yeah, it's already filtered, which is all good. Okay, cool. And then we're going to do a little bit of EQ. Just make sure we don't get any really low frequencies here to disturb with the sub. And we have a utility. The utility will be used for volume automation later on when we do the automation. There is a further little, what we have here. What's this? The saturation, the fuzz. So we can add a little bit of that. Around 16, and then there's also an additional big reverb, so we're going to around 18 on that. Quite subtle. It's not very loud, as you can hear here, but it's on there, so we've got it on there. So now we'll just name this. It's going to be called It's going to be called Subchords. All right, and then we can move on to the next stage. All right, so the next stage is building the main chords. So for this, we can just duplicate this sub chord channel because it's going to be pretty much the same. The chords are going to be very similar, but they're going to be a little bit more open and more bright. We're going to take away the return channel effects. We're going to take off this echo, and then we'll just go into the sound design and change a few things. So we're going to add an additional oscillator. And this one's going to be up and this one's going to be down. I mean, we could do it the other way around, but I just want to do it the same as the original. And then the volume is going to be around here. So we have two oscillators being used, and they're basically playing on different octaves, which creates a bit of a chord, like a 2-note chord. And then with the rest of it, we can come back to it. So I think we'll do that. But for now, let's just take this chorus down. Yeah. So it's pretty much the same as the other one, just because this will be a little bit much. And that's it. Yeah, we'll come back to it. So let's now adjust these chords so they're a little bit higher up. So what you can do is just grab them all, and then so I'm just pressing a click, and then I press Control A or Command A, Shift, and then up. It's going to bring them up an octave. You can put it into this F minor scale if you want to, but if you just follow me here, you'll be able to do the right chords. So there's some little changes. These are just called intervals, where you change the order in which the chord is played. So in this case, we're going to add an additional note, which is going to be this F, which is actually on F3, and then this G is dropping down. So it should sound like that. Nice chord. And then we have the G up here. So this is pretty much staying the same, but we're just adding that additional note. And then we're going to we're going to leave that where it is, but we're going to add a D sharp here. Nice. And then for this one here, it's going to be similar to the first one. We're going to have this G2 there. It's going to stay where it is, but we're going to add a D sharp on the bottom. So we just drop that down. And then we want to add a C here. Oh, move that along, sorry. And we need to finish this one. So this is going to have a D sharp on the top and the F on the bottom. And then an additional D sharp here. All right, cool. So we have our chords now. Let's go to the sound design, get it sounding good. So we're just going to do a few little changes on this. There will be quite a lot of modulation going on with this, or automation, I should say, going on with this synth. So it won't sound as it will when we finished. It will be different when we've done the automation. But yeah, so what we're going to do is we've changed it to a different filter. So it's on this Cascade. And we're going to make this a little bit weaker in a sense. So when you have it on 12 dBs per octave, it means that the filter is not as harsh. Think of it as, say, like this, or say like if it was on 24 dBs per octave, it might be a bit similar to this. And then if you have it on 12, it'll be a bit looser like this. Okay, that's what that is. So that's what we're doing. We put it onto clean as well. We open it up. We leave the envelope as it is. This we take off the add, which is the add was basically just two modulation sources added together, which was velocity and pressure. So we've just took that off, took off any modulation on that cutoff filter, just this one. This is the only thing modulating the cutoff filter. And then we're going to change these envelopes a little bit. So envelope 1, the attack's a bit higher, K's lower. So it will come in and then it will fade away quite quickly. And then we have no sustain and a medium release. This is actually on digital. So we can put this curve on. That's what this stands for, curve and quantize. It will just curve the envelope. And then we have envelope 2, which is a little bit like this. So a medium-ish attack, a little bit higher. And a little bit on the decay, sustain around here. And a little bit on this release. And then we can have a listen to it. So it creates that kind of wave feeling. If I take this off, you can hear that it's the amp envelope that's creating the majority of that feeling. The second envelope is just opening it up a little bit more. Okay, nice. I'm just going to check if there's other additional things here. This is on pink. And then we're going to add this over. So it's a different type of noise. Okay, there's a few other little things here. So we're going to increase the voicing. And then we're going to stack this by 2. So this is quite a big sound. This could mess up your CPU. If it does, put on this multi-core. Okay, there's a vibrato here, which we can just bring down. I don't think we're actually going to use much of the vibrato. That will just start working if I start playing with the mod wheel, but we'll just bring it down so it's the same as the original. And then we're going to add this stack index. So the stack index will be, the pan mod means you're modifying the panning on the sound. And then what we're choosing what we're modifying it with. In this case, it's the stack index, which is the stack here. So it's just going to pan with all these multiple voices, essentially. Definitely a bit loud. Let's just come down a bit more. A little bit more feedback I'm seeing here. And any other little things I might have missed? No, I think this is, yeah, it's about there, it's about there. Okay, cool. I'm just going to have a look in the trimming. No, yeah, we can leave that where it is. The trimming here is quite an interesting thing. So this is designed to make the synth kind of act a little bit more analog. So if you have an analog piece of gear, you might notice that the tuning on it sometimes changes and drifts, so that the voices kind of drift because it's like a real instrument. So like a guitar, you sometimes have to tune it. So that's what this kind of emulates, and you can implement more of that detune and more of that voice drift as the synth is playing, which can create quite nice tones. Sometimes a little bit dissonant and a bit too detuned, but sometimes it can be really nice. But in this case, we're not actually using this, but yeah, just in case you wanted to know what this is all about. It's based on stuff like that. Okay, so now let's go to the processing. Processing, we can take off this echo, but with this EQ, we're just doing a little bit of a dip around here. I think that's just to get rid of any, the whistling kind of frequencies there. And we can just EQ this down. Yeah, and then we're going to add a delay. With the delay, we're going to have it set to 4 and 8. So this is something like you might notice throughout this course, that we're doing a lot of offsetting with the timing on the delay. It just makes for like quite a nice, pleasing effect on the delay, rather than it being the same. Doesn't always work though. Yeah, very nice. And I think that might be it. We're just doing 2 more things. We've got a utility for volume automation, and at this point in the track it's actually down by 5 dB, and then we will automate it later. Let's put this at 5 minus 5, and then we're going to be changing this a little bit later. And then there is an auto filter. Auto filter, and this is being used just to filter down the sound a little bit at the end. And we got a little 20% of resonance here, and it's on 12, and it's on MS2. Nice. And then the volume we need to adjust, and also just the return channels. So we're going to put this, the last one here, this to 18. Nice. And then we're going to add a little bit of this distortion. And then -5 on the volume here as well. You can leave the volume on this sub-synth. Actually, I have this the wrong way around. Sorry, this should be, this one should be at 12. My bad. So we're using the medium hall. Yeah, sorry, is it the medium hall? Yeah, on this one. Sorry, I'm soloing the wrong one. So yeah, the sub one has a medium reverb, and then the main synth has a very large reverb. We'll play them together. Okay, great. So that is our main chord layer. We will be doing automation on it later, and now we're just going to add an additional kind of oceany noise layer. So yeah, see you in the next video. Okay, so now we're going to add a bit of an organic layer to these chords. It's going to be an ocean sample, which is going to layer basically on top and add a bit of a noise layer. So we're going to grab this from the course folder. It's this ocean Crete ambience, and we're going to just make it shorter. We don't need all of it, and we're actually just going to chop it up from like here. And so what we want to do is listen to just these chords, and we want to create that kind of wave with this. First, let's actually just turn it down a bit. Okay, so we want it to kind of warp in and then fade out. A bit like that. Maybe a little bit more. And then we'll do it again. Maybe a bit sooner here. And then another one here. Bit longer, this one. And this one can be quite long. And then we can just copy that over because it's the same timing. Nice. And then for this, we're just going to do a little bit of pan, like an auto pan. So it's going to move around a little bit. Or in fact, so we're going to take the phase away. So it's not going to move it around. It's just going to create a bit of a wobble. So we're going to put this to 22, something like that. Bring the rate down. Just solo it so you can hear. So if you take the phase down on an auto pan, it just controls just the volume parameter. So let me just exaggerate it so you can hear. So it's a bit like that, right? So that's how you can create some quite cool like LFO effects. But in this case, we just want it to be quite subtle. And it's just going to create a little bit of movement in the volume. Make sure that's all the way down. And there we go. And then we're going to have a utility on here as well, which we're not going to use just yet. We'll use it later down the line. And that's it. So that's our layer. We're going to add a little bit of this reverb, the big one. We'll do 12%. So there. So it's very subtle, especially when we have a lot going on in the track, but we'll notice it a lot more when we arrange the track out and there's more quiet parts. All right, let's move on to the next part. All right, so now we're going to build the ARP, which plays through the entirety of the track. It's quite a subtle little ARP. It's not something that's too distracting. We have Diva for this. We won't do the full sound design yet, but we'll just set it up a little bit. So right now, if I play some notes, you can hear it has this kind of warping feeling, like this whoomp whoomp, and that's because of this lag. So we're just going to change this to envelope 2. So we have a bit more of a look. And I think we're just going to bring it up an octave as well. Yeah, we'll do that for now. And then we'll just do the MIDI. So we have something to listen to while we do the sound design. So for this, you can put it into the scale if you like, but just follow these notes. So we're going to go start high up on the F4. And then we're going to do the C4. And then we're going to go back down to the F, so the octave below. And then we're basically going to work back up. So we're going to go here, then back to the C3, and then D sharp. And then that's it. So we're going to loop it from there. A bit like that. We need to do a bit of fine tuning on the sound. I'm just going to move it over here actually, so we don't hear all the other stuff. We can just copy it over. Yeah, cool. So now let's go to the sound design. For this, we want it to be, we're going to put it onto this Juno. So not on the Moog module, but the Juno or the dual VCO. So we're using 2 oscillators. And we're going to bring this all the way over and then just use a sawtooth. So change it to a sawtooth, take off the square. For this, we can leave it in the range that it's at. Yeah. And then we're going to go over to the filter section. We close this, we'll open it up a little bit and then bring this up a little bit so the attack's smoother. And then we're going to, let me just solo this because there's something else playing. Yeah. All right, cool. And then we go to the envelope setting. We're going to close it down a little bit. So going to this little notch here. For this, we add a little bit of attack. So you can hear it's a lot softer now. And the sustains around here. Okay, all good. You can leave everything else as it is. You can add noise here. It won't come in too much unless we bring this over, which we might do later on in the track. And we can put it into mono. And there's a little bit of glide. And that is about it. I'm just double checking. Yeah, cool. So that is the sound design for this. Now we need to do a bit of processing. So one first thing we're going to do is put on an LFO. And this is going to be to modulate this delay. I do have a preset or a preset rack for what we're about to create. which is quite a useful thing to have for other tracks. It's called this trip delay. We can just load it in. You can see what's going on with it. So basically we have an LFO, which is the Max for Life tool, and it's modulating something. And in this case, it's modulating the timing of